Well, good morning, I should say to you. I'm Kim McAllister, in for Nikki Medoro on this Friday. Nikki in the city making that big paycheck, and I'm filling in. Thank you for being here. I have to tell you guys something. A couple of days ago, and let me just preface this by saying, today I'm supposed to fill in. Oh, you can see sorry, you can see the wooden thing above me. I'm gonna fix it. Today I'm supposed to fill in. Sorry for the wiggly wiggly. I'm supposed to fill in for Nikki. I'm supposed to fill in for Mark. And I get this note from Comcast a couple of days ago saying, we're going to be doing work in your neighborhood upgrading. And on Friday, March 8th, internet service will be affected. And they don't give you a time frame. Could be from 9 a.m., could be all the way till 9 p.m., could be for a half an hour. We don't know. Oh, and by the way, we might not do the work on Friday after all. We could choose to do it some other day. But I'm thinking if they sent me a note, they're probably doing it Friday. So this is why, because I'm supposed to fill in for everyone today, we all have to tape record. And I'm so sorry that we're not live, but I wanted to make sure that we had some content for you, especially with the State of the Union speech, which is going on right now as we speak. Now, normally we would have John Rothmann on first to talk about the speech and kind of break it down and everything. He's watching the speech right now. So what we're going to do is we did a little flippy flop. And we're going to have Tim Sika on at 6:30, or sorry, this is when I'm recording. We'll have Tim Sika on at 9:30-ish to talk about movies and the Oscars. And then at 10, John Rothmann will be in, and he will talk about what happened with the State of the Union speech and other things as well. So that is what is happening right now. Um, I'm kind of excited to see what John Rothmann has to say. He was when I talked to him earlier, so excited about the speech. I could just see him with his popcorn, just sitting there watching everything. He used to do this in the newsroom too. And if anyone dared speak, he would shush everybody. We have to listen, right? So this is good. I will show you, as we are getting underway, recording this broadcast, what is happening live in the Capitol. And so far, just a lot of muttering and chattering and no speech yet. So they're all gathered. All the guests are gathered. And that is what we know so far. But again, we will have an update for you coming up with John Rothmann. So rest assured that is coming your way. So Tim Sika will be before John Rothmann today. And he's got some great movie reviews coming up. Among them, Kung Fu Panda 4, he'll talk about. He's also going to speak about Ricky Stenicki. And I keep seeing this movie on my streaming feed, and I'm thinking, Ricky Stenicki? I guess it's it's a comedy about an imaginary friend. I haven't clicked on it. We'll see what Tim Sika has to say. He's also going to be looking at this Iranian drama called Shada, about a Persian woman who's trying to escape an abusive situation and keep custody of her kids. Interested to hear what he has to say about that as well. And as I mentioned, the Oscars are this weekend, so we'll see if Tim Sika has anything to say about that. But first, what is in this speech, this State of the Union speech? It is expected to contain a lot about the economy, which is important because the economy has been really big so far this primary season. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So I would like for President Biden to hit that hard, and he will. Also, he's going to call for higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy. He might talk about Trump a little bit too. And we'll see how that works out. And he apparently has a promise. I understand he's going to vow to restore Roe v. Wade. He'll also acknowledge his age, which has been something people have brought up. It is an opportunity for him to let people know what he has done, what his accomplishments are, and to attack the criticism against him. And as I mentioned yesterday, Democratic governors approached President Biden saying this is the time to come out swinging, this is the time to fight. So we'll see what his demeanor is. I will say there's been a lot of worry about decorum this year because politics has really, as we all know, devolved into something kind of ugly, you could say. The old rules about being polite and respectful to your opponent, though you may disagree, have fallen by the wayside. And there was some worry about this. So House Speaker Mike Johnson says he sent a very clear message to House members, all of them, to turn the temperature down when it comes to heckling during the State of the Union speech. Again, John Rothmann, our beloved former KGO talk show host, political analyst, and presidential historian, will be along shortly to talk about it. We don't know the length of it. Last year, President Biden's speech was 1 hour and 13 minutes. Bill Clinton has the record for the longest State of the Union speech at 1 hour, 28 minutes, and Richard Nixon, the shortest speech at 28 minutes, 55 seconds. I'm all for that. I never thought I would say I really like something about Nixon, but, do you really need to introduce all the guests and make your point? Just make your point quickly, briefly, while you have the attention of the American people. Get in, get out. You're on with our lives, right? That's not how it works, I know. Speaking of guests, Nancy Pelosi is bringing a guest to the State of the Union speech. He is a veteran who appeared on Cron 4 yesterday to talk about being a guest, going to the State of the Union address. And it's funny because they asked him, Michael Blecker, who is a veteran, they asked him if he had had a chance to meet yet with Nancy Pelosi. And he said, actually, I'm looking at her right now, and I think she'd like to say something. And so she came on to, I think it was Cron 4 very quickly, and talked about the State of the Union. So it's kind of funny. I think I can play that moment for you, exclusive to Cron 4, but kind of a funny moment here. I will share my screen with you so you can take a look. But it was one of those moments, especially as a journalist, where, you expect to be doing one interview, and then all of a sudden, here comes Nancy Pelosi. Hopefully, there was some preparedness as to what, you might ask her. You always have to be prepared in this situation. But check this out.
And that wouldn't be right. Here.
No, I didn't. I'm very honored that Michael Blecker is with us. For decades, he has been a hero, not only in housing homeless vets, but in having a continuum of care, meeting their needs. As I introduced him at a press conference earlier today, I said he's been a tremendous intellectual resource in meeting the needs of our veterans. He's been a super patriot in his own service to our country. And who better to have here as we celebrate the PACT Act, something that we passed in Congress, the president signed, what it does is it addresses the needs of those veterans who are affected by burn pits. And you had to prove that, now you don't have to prove. If you were there and you are diagnosed, you get the benefit. And hundreds of thousands of people have already benefited. Millions of people have signed up and are approved, and now they're in line getting their benefits. So it's a big deal. I was so happy because Michael had time to spend with our Secretary of the Veterans Affairs, Dennis McDonough, who's been to San Francisco, who has addressed when he was Chief of Staff to President Obama, slept overnight with our veterans in the community. So he has had this as a big priority, and now he's the secretary. So
a little bit about who her guest is and a little surprise visit for her on Cron 4. And I thought that was pretty interesting. See if I can get that screen to stop. Okay. I do want to also mention that, of course, Trump is back in the news, right? As if he ever left. The question is, and I heard Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law, say that he's the person that she's the person that he wants to be put into place to lead the Republican National Committee. She said recently that she thinks the RNC should pay Trump's legal bills. Well, that's interesting. I mean, do you think that the voters, the Republicans, the leadership, the organization should be the ones to pay for Trump's legal bills? I don't think so. But if that's what you want to do, if that's who you feel like, you know, you want to support, I guess maybe helping him out is you don't feel like you're being duped. Senator Lindsey Graham says, listen, they're trying to drain the guy dry. I just think we need to help our nominee as best we can. And so Trump's allies in the Senate say they will not object if the Republican National Committee decides to help pay for Trump's mounting legal bills. A lot of them say, yeah, I think we should bail him out. If they're targeting him because he's the nominee, they say, then yes, they would maybe prefer not to have to do that. But yeah, they're looking at it. A growing number of RNC members think the party should help offset the bills from Trump's lawyers. So if you're a Republican and you donate to Republican causes or to the coffers for the Republican National Committee, do you still want to donate if you know that your money is going to help pay the legal bills of someone who may not at all be targeted because he's running for president, who may not be targeted for any other reason than he broke the law, right? So in that case, you're supporting a criminal. Is that where you want your money to go? Because I wouldn't. I mean, no, thank you. So will the Republican National Committee pay Trump's legal bills? Remains to be seen, but all indications are that there's a lot of support for such a move. I don't know. Meanwhile, Republicans have to accept that it is a big old bust when you talk about the attempted impeachment and the impeachment inquiry of President Biden, right? So now, instead of impeaching President Biden, Republicans are really thinking they might have to settle for just telling the Justice Department to prosecute his son, Hunter Biden. Well, isn't that what we've been saying all along? Hello, what a waste of time and resources. We've been saying all along, no evidence for President Biden. The crimes of the son are not the crimes of the father. What are you doing? You have no evidence. What a bunch of baloney. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, who is the pirate captain of this investigation into President Biden's alleged involvement into any of his son's foreign business deals, is now suggesting at the end of the investigation, there will be criminal referrals to the Justice Department regarding Hunter Biden and not the toppling of a president. Comer told Fox News, the purpose of this investigation was to get to the truth to the American people and then hold people accountable for wrongdoing. We're gonna do it, he said. We're gonna hold them accountable. At the end of the day, what does accountability look like? It looks like criminal referrals. It looks like referring people to the Justice Department. Again, there is no crime that President Biden has committed. And over again, they've said, we've got the evidence and we'll give it to you on Monday. And Monday has come and there's been no evidence. Nothing, a big fat zero. What do they call it? A big fat nothing burger, right? And so they look like a bunch of idiots. Honest to God, idiots. First of all, and these are the same people that bring votes to the floor and don't have the numbers, right? How embarrassing. And now you would think that you have the majority in the House, that you would bring this, you would get support, garner support, muster up all the troops you can in your Republican Party, and that you would have the votes needed to do whatever you're going to do. Or, and the novel concept here, you would actually have your ducks in a row when it comes to proof and not mount an investigation or try to smear someone. I know it's a political season when you don't actually have the evidence to bring any possible impeachment charges, right? And so they didn't have their ducks in a row and they didn't have any evidence. And so what happens? Sad trombone. Wah, 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 wah. For the Republican Party, nothing happens except what was already happening, which is Hunter Biden answering for any crimes that he may or may not have committed. I mean, that's still to be decided. All this is still playing out in courts of law. So whatever his alleged crimes may be, that's already playing out. So what have you done here? I'll tell you what you've done. You've wasted the taxpayers' time, money, and energy, and you have egg on your face. And now you look like the biggest loser. No, not you, President Biden, the people trying to smear you. And how embarrassing. The impeachment is a bust, just like we all knew it would be. Speaking of Republicans in the House, this is one of those sticky situations when you're asked this, right? Mike Johnson was asked whether he thinks discarding embryos is murder. Mike Johnson is the holy roller. He is completely against choice, against abortion. So he was asked whether he thinks discarding embryos is murder. And what he said is, it's something we've got to grapple with. Really? You think we have to grapple with it? We support the sanctity of life, and we support IVF and full access to it. So then he's asked, well, how do those things fit together? If you support the sanctity of life, but then you also support IVF, what do you want to do with the embryos that don't get implanted? What do you want to? He said, well, listen, it's policymakers will have to determine how to handle this. But he said, we do believe in the sanctity of life. And if you do believe that life begins at conception, it's really an important question to wrestle with. It's not one Congress has dealt with, and it won't be. I think it's a state issue. And with that, he slithers right on under the issue and doesn't even really answer the question. How do you answer it? What a bunch of boneheads. Did I say it out loud? Yes, I did. All right. We switch now from the serious to, well, I guess we have some serious movies to talk about as well. Do you take Oscar contention seriously? Well, then you take Tim Sika as the most serious man of all. He's the man of mystery, hiding behind the picture. Tim Sika, everybody.
Hey, Kim, I want to say I like to think of myself as serious, at least occasionally.
You are serious. Well, yeah. I've always said you're thoughtful. The way you approach your movie reviews, you always put a lot of thought and heart and soul into your decision, because I think that what you say about someone's movie and work of art affects their livelihood, affects their reputation, and everything else. And so you really do, more than probably anybody else, you really put a lot of thought and heart into these reviews that you give.
Oh, well, thank you for saying. I think sometimes I overthink things, and I overthink the movies, but whatever. That's my DNA, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it is Oscar weekend.
It is.
Do we have any predictions? Do you want to do Oscars? Yeah, let's do Oscars first.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm not very good at predicting the Oscars. I think I did really well the year before last. I think I got most of them correct.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that? I think just generally speaking, I think Oppenheimer is probably going to sweep the Academy Awards. Probably Best Picture, probably Best Director, Best Supporting Actor. I would definitely bank on those, or make a bet on those if I was going to, bet some money. I think Barbie will probably win for adapted screenplay. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of the awards? I wish. I think the best performance by an actress this year was given by Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall. Oh. It's one of those performances that even I think her colleagues know, she's really brilliant. She's really the best. That could be an upset, I'm hoping, because I think she was brilliant and I think she gave a great performance. I've watched that movie 3 times, and it's almost like she's not even acting. She's just being real in the movie. But I would love to see her win, but it's probably going to be between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible to say. I think Lily Gladstone is probably going to win. That's probably going to be like a checkbox. win. For one, she's in the wrong category. She should be in the supporting category because gives a supporting performance in that movie. And in the last third of her screen time, she kind of is just in a bed, sweating and dying from this, from being poisoned by her husband. So not to downgrade her. I think she's very good. I think she's effective. I think she serves the story well, but I don't think she gave the best performance of the year by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, those are just some initial thoughts I have off the top of my head.
She's up against Annette Bening.
Yeah.
From
Great.
Naiad, Lily
Great
Gladstone,
Naiad.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
Sandra Hüller,
yeah.
Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan in Maestro, and Emma Stone in Poor Things. So you're going Sandra in Anatomy of a Fall.
Well, I'm going out on a limb. I don't really think she's going to win. She's my favorite, for sure. But I'm thinking probably Lily Gladstone's probably going to win.
And then actor in a leading role, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo in Rustin, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction.
Yeah, everybody is really great in this category. Bradley Cooper is kind of like, I don't know, he mimics Bernstein. Whatever. I can see why he got nominated for Best Actor, just because of the work and the preparation and the research he did in order to play him. Yeah. My favorite performance of the year of all these, I mean, they're all great, is probably Coleman Domingo in Rustin. I think he's the dark horse. It's going to be between Paul Giamatti and The Holdovers, which would be like a popular sort of sentimental favorite. He's also great in the movie, and Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy won the SAG Award, and that's usually an indication of who will win the Oscar. But it's not always. There's no hard and fast rules about any of this stuff.
And you're going Oppenheimer for movie of the year, motion picture.
And director for sure, and definitely supporting actor, Robert Downey Jr. It's his time, and he's going up against some other good performances, but none that really stand out in the way his did in Oppenheimer. So, and they should give him an Oscar. The industry needs to give Robert Downey Jr. an Oscar already. He's a great actor.
He really is. What do you think about the animated short, the best animated movie of the year?
Yeah, let's see, animated film.
The Boy and the Heron.
Okay, Boy
Elemental.
And the Heron.
Nimona. Robot Dreams. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Those are the ones.
I'm gonna guess. I think they're probably going to give it to The Boy and the Heron, only because it's just that's an inexplicably. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen.
It's inexplicably weird. I mean,
I saw Elemental. That's about the only one I've seen of. Oh, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
They're all really excellent. Robot Dreams is a nice little movie too.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse deserves it just because of what it achieved. That movie operates on so many levels.
Yeah.
It's like watching a 6-level chess match because there's so many layers. It's technologically brilliant. The animation is unbelievable. The story's fantastic. But I have a feeling it's going to be The Boy and the Heron. Yeah, just because I have a gut feeling, but whatever. Like I say, I'm not always remotely accurate when I'm making these predictions. So
do you go to an Oscar party, or do you sit home and
I sit home. Yeah, I sit home with my scorecard and I just watch. Yeah, and I try not to take them too seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
Do you do Oscar parties? Do you do?
I don't. I'm usually by myself on the couch because no one else here is as interested as I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be the one watching. And sometimes people will walk in and stop for a few minutes and watch with me and then walk away. So that's how it works out over here.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
Let's talk about Kung Fu Panda.
Oh yeah, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the DreamWorks animated franchise IP, right? That just keeps on giving. Kids love these Kung Fu Panda movies, hence the 4th one, right? I mean, they keep making money too. And we seem to get one of these Kung Fu Panda movies every 4 years or so.
Can I tell you something?
Well, yeah.
We have a house ban on Kung Fu Panda.
Why is that?
Because the first couple, at least, were full of put downs and name calling to the point where they made fun of people's appearance. They made fun of people. I mean, it seemed over the top and unnecessarily cruel in the name calling department.
Interesting. I should
Kids,
revisit them because I don't remember that necessarily. But yeah, go ahead.
so
Go on.
we have an anti Kung Fu Panda policy. Yeah,
Ah,
but so I'm
yeah.
interested to hear what you have to think about it.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we seem to get one of these every 4 years or so, and in addition to I mean, there's so many television specials, Kung Fu Panda television specials, and short films featuring this character, Po the Dragon Warrior Panda, voiced by Jack Black, right? Who at first. Well, in the first movie, he's just this clumsy panda, but then he kind of evolves into this master of martial arts. And anyway, and in this latest one, Kung Fu Panda 4, this Kung Fu Panda Tale, the character Po is set to go to the next level of spiritual advancement, and he becomes the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace. So he sets out in search of a successor. In other words, somebody has to replace him as the new dragon warrior. So he goes on this quest to find a replacement. That's what I've always liked about these movies. The component about these movies that sort of like got me interested in watching them at all was just the spiritual component. They're martial arts movies, and anyway, this one, great voice cast here, amazing voice cast. Jack Black, of course, returns as Kung Fu Panda.
Right.
Aquafina is in this. She plays a fox. Viola Davis plays this shape-shifting chameleon.
So many big names.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman plays a red panda and Poe's master.
Wow.
Bryan Cranston plays another panda and Poe's biological father. And Kiwoy Kwan from Everything Everywhere All at Once plays the scaly anteater. So it's got a great cast.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is more of the same. Boy, what you said about the first two makes me want to look at them again to see if they occur to me in the same way that they occur to your family.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a Kung Fu Panda fan, you'll probably get most of what you expect from the fourth installment. It's got colorful animation, martial arts, action sequences, some funny jokes. Some of this is funny, and a few nice messages for kids about friendship and character and what it means and what it takes to grow as a person, be you human or a panda. So hard for me to get excited about because it kind of it was, like I said, it's more of the same, but it's all in service of this franchise and this character that kids seem to love, except the kids over at Kim McAllister's house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no, they love it. They want to watch it. There's just
okay.
No,
But mom says no. Okay.
No, we have a ban.
Okay. All right.
So you recommend or you don't recommend?
I recommend it for fans. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, it was just hard to get excited because I'm going,
Yeah.
well, I've seen this so many times,
Kung
but
Fu
it
Panda.
it is what it is, as they say. That's what it is. Kung Fu Panda 4.
Asleep in my palm.
Yeah, this is an interesting little first time at bat independent movie. It's written and directed by this guy named Henry Nelson, the real life son of the movie star, Tim Blake Nelson, who's in the photo there on the left. He plays this father and an Afghanistan war veteran living off the grid in a storage facility with his daughter,
Oh, wow.
played by Chloe Kerwin, who's on the right there, in rural Ohio near this small liberal arts college.
God, that
And
sounds miserable.
and it's winter on top of it. So if you've ever experienced winter in Ohio, I'm from Ohio originally, so I can attest to the fact that in the winter in Ohio, it can get freezingly cold. I'm from Cleveland, and Cleveland is located right off Lake Erie. And I remember once when the wind chill factor, that in Cleveland, there was always like two temperature readings, Fahrenheit temperature readings, one the regular temperature and then the wind chill factor temperature. And I remember one night the wind chill factor was 60 degrees below zero because the wind coming off the lake when it's like 3 degrees,
Right.
it's cold. And anyway, and the film really captures that level of cold. I felt cold watching this movie in the same way I felt cold when I watched Dr. Zhivago for the first time. Anyway, so it's about this guy and his daughter and how they are, eking out this existence. These are the invisible people that occupy a huge portion of this country. And yeah, it's a simple, pretty direct, nicely written and directed for a first-time director story of a family, of loneliness, and the forgotten individuals in a society. Tim Blake Nelson, he's one of our great character actors. He's appeared in something like over 90 movies. He's produced
Wow.
movies, he's directed movies, he's written plays, he's adapted those plays to the screen. He also parenthetically wrote and directed one of the grimmest but one of the greatest Holocaust movies ever made called The Gray Zone.
Oh.
God, if you ever want to put yourself in a despairing mood, watch The Gray Zone. It's great.
Okay.
Anyway, portrait of all that is good about the Iranian culture as well. So
Is
wonderful, wonderful movie. Yeah.
Does this movie take place in Iran or in America?
It actually takes place in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She's the character is an Australian immigrant, but she's going back and forth to Iran to deal with her husband, who's doing everything he can to not get her to divorce him. But yeah, and it's based on the experiences of the director as a child. She remembers growing up in a similar situation, so she wrote about it and told it here, and it's very, very, very good. Really good movie. Yeah.
I see at the top it says Academy Award Best International Feature Film, but looking at the full list of international feature films of this year,
Yeah.
it's not listed. This year we have Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teacher's Lounge, which you really liked, and from Germany, and The Zone of Interest, which you liked from the UK. So this must have been last year's submission, maybe?
Well, no, it was. Here's the thing. That's a kind of a thing. That's actually not accurate. It's not untrue, but it's not accurate either. It was Iran's submission to this year's Oscars. So in other words, the country said, we're submitting this film to you, the Academy, because we want it considered for your best international feature. This is the feature film we want representative of our country. But it didn't make it into the final five. Yeah, I mean there's been a lot of great foreign films, international films released this year. This easily could have been one of the five.
Really?
Yeah, it's that good. Yeah,
Of the five I mentioned, which one do you think is going to go home with it?
Oh, I am hoping, and I have my fingers crossed for The Zone of Interest, which was my number one movie of the year in my top 10. Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant movie, brilliant film. And again, another film that really doesn't show you horrors of the Holocaust, but we hear and interested by what's on the other side of the wall that separates the Auschwitz concentration camp from the living quarters. Which is pastoral and idyllic and gorgeous and beautiful. Oh yeah, brilliant movie. I have a feeling that's going to win. Although I think is Anatomy of a Murder in there? No, I don't think that was eligible for international feature.
I just can't imagine being part of the sound for that movie.
Yeah, it's it actually got an Academy nomination for sound. So but and The Zone of Interest was also nominated for Best Picture. So it's a very good chance. When an international film is nominated in the Best Picture category and in the Best International Feature Film category, it will usually win in the Best International Feature because it's going in there with the strength of having been also nominated for Best Picture. So I'm thinking if I had to bet I'd say Zone of Interest.
Achievement in sound, The Zone of Interest is listed. Oppenheimer is listed. And I have a friend who worked sound, Gary Rizzo, who's nominated for sound for Oppenheimer. Mission Impossible. He's a dad at my children's school, and he's down for all the time.
Oh, wow! So he actually worked on Mission Impossible.
He actually had like one of the ones he won for was Dunkirk. So
Wow, has he ever let you hold his Oscar, any one of his Oscars?
no, but he posts pictures of his kids holding his Oscars every time.
Oh, you got to have him, on the show and bring them, or
I know.
bring and yeah.
I've tried to convince him, but he's like, I don't know what I want to say, and I'm like, well, I'm okay. But it's funny because at the talent shows, I would always thank the parents that were involved, and I would say, and thank you to our Academy Award-winning sound engineer, and it's true.
Yeah,
you guys got like
great.
4 or 5 Oscars already, so
yeah, no, absolutely exploit that. I would too, absolutely, yeah.
So the zone of interest, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, Maestro, and The Creator are all the sound submissions.
Yeah, I'm
or nominees, I should say.
I'm thinking. I mean, the artistic win would be Zone of Interest, but it's probably going to be Oppenheimer. I would think that had spectacular.
There's
sound
another
design.
Oscar for Gary then.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll next week when we talk, we can go over that, and you can remind me again about him and his possible Oscar win here.
Gonna have to buy a bigger case.
Yeah.
All right, a quick Tim Sika recap. Kung Fu Panda. If you like the Kung Fu Panda series, okay, it's for you. If not, Asleep in My Palm. You thought this was really worth watching. It's cold, it's depressing, but you say it's a really good story and it's worth seeing.
And hopeful as well.
Hopeful. Okay, Ricky Nikki, a comedy that's not funny. You would avoid.
Yes.
And Shada, you say it's dark in its topic, but you think it's a good movie, and you loved that we only see the violence in the aftermath of the characters' faces.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, that's
right.
Very good summation of
Right
my chattering on here.
Tim Sika, thank you for recording with me early, and I'll
You're
be
welcome.
texting you on Oscar night.
Okay. Oh yeah, please text
Okay.
me. Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see if Gary wins again.
I'll be hoping.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Talk to you
Bye,
next week.
Tim. Thank you so
bye-bye.
much.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
welcome.
bye.
Bye.
Tim Sika, everybody. Love it. But Fridays wouldn't be Fridays on the Nikki Medoro Show without Tim Sika's amazing movie reviews. As I said, very, very thoughtful always. Well, before we go to John Rothmann, who should be along any moment to talk about the State of the Union, I did want to talk about the state of the city in San Francisco, because Mayor London Breed gave her State of the City address, and she got a little upset. She gave it yesterday, Thursday, and she basically got really heated and frustrated with all of the people that are constantly naysaying about San Francisco, right? Oh, the crime. Oh, the this. Oh, the that. She set out to highlight the progress made on her work to, she says, take in the challenges San Francisco is facing. She says we're becoming encouraging, embracing change, and becoming a city of yes. All right. She said this: I'm tired of people who talk about San Francisco as if our troubles are inevitable and our success a fluke. She said our successes are not a fluke, and they are not fleeting. They're the product of years of hard work, collaboration, investment, creativity, and perseverance. They are the output, she said, of thousands of people in government and out who believe in service and not cynicism. She talked about shutting down drug markets in the Tenderloin and south of Market, coordinating public agencies, everyone you can name, from the state to the local to the federal, to get this done. She says the efforts have paid off. She talked about Mark Farrell running against her for the mayorship of San Francisco. He is accused of hollow rhetoric that does not align with her track record of failed leader. He said, the state of the city is buckling under 5 years of failed leadership from Mayor Breed. Our streets have become a free-for-all for tent encampments, drug dealing, and overdose deaths, while we have become the joke of America, the butt of jokes across America. Well, she was not happy with that. Actually, downright, we say pissy is a word? Angry. She said no, that is not the case at all. That she's tired of people who are highlighting the failures of San Francisco and not the successes. That if you're not part of the solution, basically, you're part of the problem. So get out of her way. So I question, did she make a big enough case that the city of San Francisco is moving in the right direction, that the drug dealers are being taken off the streets, that open air drug markets are a thing of the past? Do enough people believe their cars won't get stolen in San Francisco? Is the story in San Francisco changing, and is it changing fast enough to save a job? So she says she's working aggressively to make changes in San Francisco, and we'll see. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, the only North Face store is closing down. They're calling it on ABC7 another blow to the city of San Francisco. Thursday, North Face announced it would close its only store on Post Street later this month. They founded the company, North Face, in San Francisco in 1964. That Post Street store is the only North Face in San Francisco, and it's closing down. It's in Union Square, so it's one of many Union Square shops out, with Macy's gone, North Face gone. I don't know what Union Square, how it's going to be, what's going to happen. Yeah. Since the start of 2023, there have been more than 3 dozen downtown San Francisco retailers that announced plans to close down, shutter, and move on. And they're all right around that Union Square area. So I think we're in real trouble when it comes to business in San Francisco. I don't know if you saw this story. Rupert Murdoch is engaged again and planning a June wedding. Wait, wasn't he just engaged? And didn't they call off that wedding? He's engaged to Elena Zhukova, and she is a retired molecular biologist. He is 92, and she is 62. Maybe they have real, true year after Mr. Murdoch announced his engagement to Anne Leslie Smith, and she was a retired dental hygienist, but they broke that off. They didn't get married. So now, a year later, he's engaged to someone else. I think when you're 92, you really want companionship, you move fast on these things, right? There's no lollygagging. You meet somebody, you marry them, that's that. Although I wonder why he feels he has to marry these people. I mean, he's 92, right? I don't know. His first wedding was in 1956. Then that was a divorce. Then 1967? That's when they divorced. 1999? Yeah, he's been through it with the marriages and divorces and what have you. So we'll see. Will the June wedding take place, or will the June wedding not take place? I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, John Rothmann should be along any moment to talk about what is happening with the State of the Union. But let's check in
all saw
and
that
see what's happening.
Commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot like $8 and 30-some dollars. They don't like it. Credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiations with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? $100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
So that's a little bit of the speech live right now. John Rothmann messaged me to say, hey, I got to finish watching the speech, so I'll come on after the speech is done. And I don't fault him for that. But what I do know, so that kind of threw him off a little bit. I can see why. That sounded like a very angry voice. And I hope security came in quickly. Here's a little more of what President Biden said earlier when he was talking about Ukraine. He said, history is watching. Europe is at risk. The free world is at risk, emboldening others who wish to do us harm. He said his message to Vladimir Putin is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. History is watching, he said, just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th. Insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger at the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on the darkest of days. We saw with our own eyes these insurrectionists were not patriots. They had come to stop the peaceful transfer of power and to overturn the will of the people. January 6th and the lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed the greatest threat to our democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. And America stood strong and democracy prevailed. He said we must be honest, the threat remains, and democracy must be defended. And this is where he mentions Trump without mentioning Trump. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth of January 6th. I will not do that. This is a moment to speak the truth and bury the lies. And here, he said, is the simplest truth. You can't love your country only when you win. Whoever wrote the speech, bravo. Beautiful words. Amazing. This speech is pretty good. I'm noticing a humongous change, though, in the way the president is received. And I don't think it has to do with President Biden, but I do think it has to do with a change up in the decorum of the people we're sending to Washington, D.C. You have more people that are belligerent, more people that yell out. It used to be that if you didn't agree with someone, the speaker, the president, you would just stay seated in your chair and not clap. Your face would be blank. There was no yelling. There was no screeching. This is America, right? We hear people out. We listen to people. We're not rude. Oh, but we are. Did you hear that? So rude. I'm pretty offended by that. I'm impressed by President Biden's ability to handle it for the most part. And I think his speech is really, really good. He did also say tonight that he wanted to stand up for women seeking IVF treatment. He said to his friends across the aisle, the Republicans there, don't keep families waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to IVF nationwide. He said, like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. And I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom and so much more. But he said, again, my predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He is the reason it was overturned, President Biden said. In fact, he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. And then he introduced a woman who is living in Dallas, but had her embryos, I believe, frozen in Alabama, and had just been planned to go back to have them put in to see if she could have another baby. How sad. How sad is that? So because the Texas law banning abortion went into effect, she and her husband had to leave the state to get the care that she needed, which apparently is why she has to deal with all of this. He said those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women in America. And boy, do I hope he's right about that. Man, they found out, he said, when reproductive freedom was on the ballot and won in 2022 and in 2023. And he said they will find out again in 2024. I mean, the hope that gives me, amazing. He said, America cannot go back. He said, I'm here tonight to show the way forward because I believe I know how far we've come. 4 years ago next week, before I came into office, our country is hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. He said, remember the fear, record job losses, spike in crime, and the murder rate. And then he talks about his predecessor failing the most basic duty. Any president owes the American people the duty to care. And that, he said, is unforgivable. I think he nailed it. I have to tell you, the speech is amazing. I'm loving it. So as you were in front of your television last night, or your computer, or your radio, or wherever you were listening. What did you think? I'll be in the chat today to check out and hear what you guys have to say. But I'm lifted up by what the president is saying. You know, in a year, this year, where I feel like reproductive choice has been severely pushed down, where women's choices have been pushed down across America. I mean, I'm in California, but I'll fight for my sisters across the country. So I feel happy about what the president is saying. Earlier, I was reading an article about this being a moment where President Biden has to fight. And I feel like he brought it, right? He feels passionate. Yeah, he feels passionate. Again, another standing O for President Biden. Yeah, it's good. So he's fighting for reproductive rights. He's selling his economic policies, and he's slamming Trump. What a perfect opportunity to do this in the State of the Union address. I didn't hear him say the State of the Union is strong. I'm sure he will say this, but I do like what he said about the threat to democracy and how we can't forget. And I love the reminder that history will remember. Do you think people care that history will remember? Do you think the people that will go down in history as going against America will care how history sees them? Because I would. I don't know. Maybe it's all just about getting what you want in the now, and that's how we've changed. I'm not sure. But a good speech, the State of the Union, and again, hopefully John Rothmann will be along to talk about that with us as the speech goes on. Let me see. Watching the speech, I have a little live screen. He's not done with it yet. He's going on. I don't know how long it's going to be. He tends to talk a lot, but I'm glad that he is. It shows that he has stamina, that he can stand up there and do this. Yep, pretty good. And I also love, you saw in the crowd there, the sea of women in white. I love that he's highlighting the power of female voters. I'm glad that he issued a reminder to Republicans, that they'll see women rising up. And I think we really have to in 2024. We have no alternative. Women have to show up. Women have to make it very, very clear across America what we want. And that is, the polling shows that most people and most women across America choice. It's true. I mean, if you remember when Trump was president, it seemed like anything Putin wanted, Trump was on his side. Let's roll that way. And we've seen over the last year, more Republicans pull back their support for Ukraine and start maybe offering a little bit of love toward Russia. That's not what we want to see. We have Sweden that just managed to get themselves into NATO for fear that Russia's coming. The world's in a weird spot right now. I think we need somebody like President Biden at the helm. And I don't know what's going to happen if he's not. And the alternative slides into power. That's frightening to me. Remember that show, Designated Survivor, where everybody of import, right, is at the State of the Union address, except for one person who's taken to a secure location in case something happens and terrorists manage to get it right. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona is the designated survivor for President Biden's State of the Union speech. He had to retreat to an undisclosed location during the State of the Union address. He has to stay away from the U.S. Capitol. This task is given every year to one person. And this year, Mr. Cardona gets the job of remaining outside the House chamber during the speech in case. He, again, is the Secretary of Education. He has been since March of 2021. It's pretty funny. I mean, I guess that means you're kind of important, right? If you're the one person that would remain, that they pick to remain, you have to have something going for you. I don't know. I really liked that show, though. Remember that show? Was it Kiefer Sutherland who was in? I forget who was in that show, but it was really good. Designated Survivor. Yeah, I mean, they could have picked a lot of different people. Antony Blinken could have been the designated survivor. Janet Yellen on the list. Yeah, but no. Even Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation. And that would have been a great choice. But Education Secretary Miguel Cardona. I wonder if he's thinking right now, God, please nothing happen. Please nothing happen. I'm just happy with education. I don't need anything else. Pretty good. It's funny they make that public, you know, who's taken out and who's put in a secure spot. And behind President Biden at the State of the Union, you see Vice President Kamala Harris, and you see Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's surrounded also by the House parliamentarian and the House clerk. But you see Kamala Harris and Mike Johnson opposing parties there right next to each other. So that's a little interesting as well. And it's, again, you know, very contentious. There are 535 members of Congress, and everybody is granted a ticket for one guest. Everybody gets to bring somebody extra. They don't have to sit separately based on party, but they always do. So that's interesting. There's a lot of standing up and getting down and clapping as I watch what's going on live. And it looks like perhaps the speech is almost over. Shall we check back in one more time before John Rothmann joins us? I say yes. Let's do it.
Old eyes too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. They're not a joke. And I've been told I'm too old. Young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot, and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I think that really shows the difference. I was reading an article recently about the difference between Trump's campaign and every other campaign. And President Biden just said it. That Trump's campaign is built on negativity, right? It's built on anger, on retribution, on what's wrong with America. The difference is President Biden's is built on hope, on working together, on what's right with America, right? It's a big difference as you look at the difference between these two campaigns. So most of the time, you'll see candidates run on messages of hope, of making a better America, not of tearing it down, not of negativity and what's wrong. All right. Fresh from the speech, John Rothmann, he is just about his chair and talk about his analysis and what he thought of the State of the Union address. And I will say, I know better than to interrupt John Rothmann when he's watching a presidential speech. It is just not done. So I do understand why he wanted to finish out the speech, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. But I'm very uplifted, especially by that last message. And I think it was definitely meant for Trump supporters and meant for Trump himself. When you look at people trying to tear America down instead of build it up. And when you look at people trying to work together. And remember, in Texas, in Brownsville, Texas, President Biden issued, I don't want to say was an offer. I guess it was an offer to Trump and said, work with me here, right? Work with me on immigration. When we work together, we can do things. He said, hey, if you don't want to come to me, I'll come to you. Here's a guy who will do whatever it takes to get things done. That's the president for me. Someone who's hopeful, who's optimistic, and who will work really hard to get things done. That he is 81 years old with that much energy and that much drive and passion to help America. Yes, please. More Joe Biden. And I now welcome John Rothmann to the Nikki Medoro Show.
That is not only
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can. You sound loud and there's some audio in the background.
I just turned off the audio. Of course,
Okay.
we're still listening to the conclusion, the wrap up. I hope people know we're recording the night before.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So
So what'd you think?
great speech.
Yeah.
He hit all the right points. He did it effectively. He was powerful and compelling. And he laid down the basis for what his campaign for president will be in this election year.
Yeah.
But I took particular care to watch Speaker Johnson, whose reluctance to join in is completely understandable.
Yeah.
The Republicans, if you noticed during the speech, were not clapping, basically sat on their hands, would give no sanction to what President Biden said. I noticed that the one time that Speaker Johnson stood and really applauded was on the Middle East, where he and Biden are in complete agreement, at least in terms of support for Israel.
Right.
I thought that the reaction in terms of President Trump and the response to President Trump that Joe Biden gave lays down the basis of what we will hear in this election year. There is no doubt that there is a real contrast between them. The fact that the president made clear that he wants effective action on guns, the fact that he made clear he supports the question of saving our environment. Remember, we have had the hottest year in history, and he understands that. The fact that he was very clear about his support for aid to Ukraine and support to Israel, his concern about humanitarian assistance for the Palestinians in Hamas that are under Hamas subjugation. All of this rang clear. And he hit all of the domestic issues, I thought, very well, particularly reproductive rights.
Yeah.
He was clear, precise, unambiguous about the fact that he is going to defend a woman's right to choose. And he said, give me a Congress and we will get Roe v. Wade back.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a major theme of the Republicans. They're going to hit hard. They're going to hit hard, and they're going to hit effectively. So I think that is going to be a key. Absolutely.
So we were listening to the speech live here on the show, parts of it. And one of the things we heard was some heckling. Now, at some points, President Biden gave it right back, right? Gave it as good as he got. There were boos, and he would say, oh, you don't like the facts? Well, you know. And at other points, it sounded at one point like there was someone who was screeching in the back, and that may have thrown him off a little bit.
No, I didn't think he was thrown off at all. I think he responded.
What did you think about the hecklers? Was it the decorum worse this year than it has been in worse past? And your opinion on it in general? Sorry to interrupt.
No, the decorum is what we expected. The Republicans said they were going to be vociferous. Marjorie Taylor Greene, in particular, was very vocal tonight. There were violations of the rules. Oh, by the way, you know that George Santos was sitting in the back because, as a former member of Congress, he's entitled to floor privileges. But it was very clear to me and is absolutely essential to understand that what Joe Biden did tonight was to draw a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And I think the Republicans made a fundamental error in their approach. But that's what they have to do. I have not had a chance, and I confess this with some reluctance, to take a look at Donald Trump's comments on Truth Social. I regret that because I think how Donald Trump responds will also be critical. But the president had no reluctance in talking about the violence on January 6th and the fact that that needs to be addressed. And I'll tell you, it was very interesting to me. That this took place with in such a forceful manner, recalling January 6th and the way he did in Congress.
That was pretty powerful, I thought. I mean, you would think that everybody there would be someone who would, had gone through that and who would understand the seriousness of that moment and would have joined him and be on board with him. That some people stayed quiet, I don't understand.
No, not even quiet. He was booed.
Yeah.
You understand that the Republican Party is now tied in without any question or doubt to Donald Trump's position about the election of 2000, about the question of the insurrection which took place. And by the way, you'll notice the president called it an insurrection, which to me was also very significant. Mm-hmm. Look, there are clear differences between Democrats and Republicans, and those differences were highlighted tonight. And I'm not listening now because I'm talking to you to the Republican response, but I would have been intrigued to hear what the response might have been from the Republicans.
CNN's, it's fascinating to me, the difference in coverage from who's saying what. So here is the CNN lead tonight. Biden comes out swinging.
Correct.
Right? And so that's what they have to say. Whereas, and I guess it's really not much of a surprise, over on Fox News, here's what they have to say. At the urging of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Biden mentions Laken Riley killed by an illegal. That's their focus.
Of course.
Say her name. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's so silly. Like, that's the one thing they call out of all the things that happened tonight or last night, if you're watching on Friday, and all the things that were said. That's what they harp on at Fox News. It's gross.
It is. And let me tell you this. I don't say it as a partisan. Please understand. If I withdraw my partisan views, and I look at what the Republicans did tonight or didn't do tonight, that's what's shocking to me. And I would say this if the Democrats had pulled this kind of stunt as well. Yeah. The discourtesy, the lack of understanding was just phenomenal.
I heard him talk about the power of female voters, right?
It's true.
And he talked about how in the last few years, every time reproductive choice has been on the ballot, women have shown up. And they did it in 21 and 22, and they will probably do it again in 24. Of that, he had no doubt.
Yes, and let me explain to you that he's absolutely right. The Republicans are on the wrong side of the question of reproductive rights and women's health. And he called out the whole question of in vitro fertilization, which you and I have discussed on many occasions. And he's right. And when the president pledged that if he gets a Democratic Congress, he will move to reinstate Roe v. Wade through the Congress, that's going to resonate with the American people. And the Republicans, I think, need to understand that. And I don't think that they can. Well, the best example tonight was when President Biden said that Donald Trump picked up the phone and called members of Congress on the question of aid to Ukraine and Israel. And that, to me, was very powerful. He was not reluctant to take on Donald Trump, and he did it in a diplomatic way, but in a firm way. And that, to me, is what is so critical.
He also called on Congress to pass voting rights legislation. What does he want, and why is that important?
Because the Republicans are trying to limit the right of people to vote in too many states. There are limitations on voting. And he talked about gerrymandering. He's talking absolutely the essential nature of what the Republicans are doing. The fewer people vote, the more important that is. By the way, the same thing applied on immigration. He called them out. And if you notice, the cameras went to Senator Langford, who is a conservative Republican who wrote the bill dealing with the border. It was a compromise bill, and it was backed by conservative Republicans and by Democrats in the Senate. And who killed it? Well, the president was very clear. Donald Trump picked up the phone, called the Republican leadership and said, kill it. We can't grant them a victory. And that is exactly what happened. And so when you consider those facts, it's very important. And I think that's how Joe Biden scored a lot of good points tonight, without any question.
Do you think he scored any points with the people that are frustrated, that are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, the people that are concerned about the innocent people that are getting killed there? Because he is directing the military to build a temporary port to transport aid to Gaza. And so I wonder if that, because we've seen people that are progressive say, well, I can't vote for President Biden because I don't like his position on this issue. Does that give him any credibility with people that want help for folks?
No, actually, I think what he's done is right. He blamed Hamas. He was very clear about labeling Hamas as the cause of this tragic situation. He was also clear that he is in favor of humanitarian aid. So are you, so am I, and so are the Israelis. The question becomes, how do you get aid in without Hamas smuggling other things in or misusing the aid? Remember, when concrete was brought in to Gaza for construction, Hamas used that to build those tunnels. And Israelis are very much aware of that. I have to tell you, Hamas has made the Palestinian people a hostage. And by the way, the president spoke clearly about the fact that they use mosques, that they use hospitals, that they use areas which are designed for civilians. Hamas is the culprit. Now, it will not satisfy those, and you saw tonight before the State of the Union, those who were demonstrating in Washington. But you have to differentiate between people who want to help and people who want Israel destroyed. And regrettably, and I know that we've discussed this before, and there are some listening to the sound of my voice who may disagree with me, Hamas is not in favor of a two-state solution. Hamas is only in favor of the destruction of Israel. They make it clear in their rhetoric, in their covenant, in their whole approach. So, in a sense, it's the ultimate tragedy. And I don't know how the Palestinian people will survive without being liberated from Hamas. And that's what it boils down to. And by the way, the Palestinian Authority has been passive in this, which creates a whole other series of issues. The president calls for a two-state solution, and a two-state solution might be the best solution. But in order to have a two-state solution, you have to have Hamas and the Palestinians agree to it.
Yeah.
Because the last thing the Israelis will agree to is a Palestinian state on their border that would be used as Hamas used Gaza to attack Israel. So all of these factors need to be taken into account. I was equally interested in his charge about Ukraine. He made very clear that America is committed to Ukraine's survival. And do you notice who was sitting in the presidential box? The person sitting in the presidential box was Sweden's prime minister. Why? Because Sweden is now a member of NATO. You know, Putin's desire to destroy that Western coalition, he was wrong. Finland and Sweden are now members of NATO.
Yeah.
It is the complete opposite of what Putin wanted to have happen.
I want to ask you about a campaign speech versus the State of the Union. And one in an election year, when you're trying to say all the things that you've done right, and you're trying to say that the direction you want America to go in, there's a lot of overlap between the state of the country, what you're trying to do for America, and why you're running again. Do you see a problem, or do you see that it was more of a campaign speech than a message to the American people about how our country's doing?
Every State of the Union by a sitting president is a campaign speech. Every State of the Union. That is the president's opportunity to lay out what he wants to do. And I would point out to you that no one is surprised by what Joe Biden did anymore. And I would remind you, because you and I have covered them in the past, that we were surprised by Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric delivering a speech, or Barack Obama's, or George W. Bush.
Right.
This is part, or Bill Clinton. This is part of what we do. Now, please know that the one thing that he did that I think was very critical is he laid out an agenda for now and an agenda for the future.
Right.
And he did it forcefully, and he did speak directly to the Republicans, drawing the line between his position and the Republicans' position.
He did kind of go off the cuff, I guess, when he was talking about drug prices and comparing the price of medication in Russia to the price of medication in the United States. And I guess he got some facts wrong, and he's being called out on that. Is that the only mistake you think he made? Could he have done anything better in your eyes?
No, I think he was very effective tonight. Did he make mistakes, like on the drug thing, mentioning Russia, and then he sort of caught himself? Of course. Look, when you give a speech off the cuff, unless you are practiced at it, you're going to make mistakes. I don't hold the mistakes against him. What I saw tonight were members of the Democratic Party, including critics of the president, cheering him on. What I saw were Republicans sitting on their hands. I saw Speaker Johnson's expressions. I watched his face, and where he applauded and where he didn't, and where he stood and where he didn't. That's what Washington is. The State of the Union is the perception of where we are, and that is the president's.
See the rebuttal, and it looks like, looking at live coverage, that they're still showing President Biden meeting and greeting people in the chamber.
Oh, good. That's no problem.
I know. know how much you want to see these things, and I don't want to get in your way. I can't thank you enough for coming on the Nikki Medoro Show, giving us the recap. It truly isn't an election season, an election night for me, or a State of the Union speech without my John Rothmann giving me the what's what. So thank you.
May I say it was my pleasure, and I look forward to being with you again in the near future.
We'll do it next week. Thank you, John Rothmann. Go watch TV.
Bye.
Bye. John Rothmann, everybody. Huge thank you to John Rothmann for coming on to the Nikki Medoro Show with me, and I'll take you off of the screen. Thank you, John Rothmann. Okay. So thank you for sticking with me on this recorded version of the Nikki Medoro Show. And again, because of my internet difficulties with Comcast telling me the internet's going to be out on Friday, we do have to record portions of the Mark Thompson show as well. So I'm headed that way now to do some recording. There may or may not be an after party live, depending on the internet coverage here. Hopefully we'll be able to have something for you as far as content in that regard as well. Thank you for your patience so much. And thank you for being part of this show today. Hopefully at this point, we've been chit-chatting in the chat, and I've gotten a chance to hear and see what you are saying. Thank you, as always, for supporting this show. I can't thank you live, but to everyone who has super stickered and super chatted and supported via PayPal and Patreon, boy, you guys get me in the heart. Thank you for supporting what we're doing and for making it possible for us to keep going with all 3 shows. I can't honestly tell you how much you mean to me. So thank you for that. The interactions we've been able to have been different, and I'm going to even say better than on the radio, because maybe I heard your voice, but I didn't get to see you every day and hear your opinions every day like I do here. I'm so grateful for having that chance to do that. So again, theNikkiMedoroShow.com is our website. It's theNikkiMedoroShow.com. All the ways to support us are on the website. We will see you again on Monday. Well, I will see you again on Monday. Hopefully my internet works, but Nikki will still be working in San Francisco, but that's okay because we'll have a lot to talk about. So for now, I will see you on the Mark Thompson Show, and then hopefully on the After Party Live. And I hope you're having a great Friday. All right, we'll close this show out, as we always do, with a double dose of my boy Jake. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow, okay.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. And I really can't rest. You're oh so awesome.